Hey kids, welcome to today's episode. We're going to do a bit of a longer couch talk because we've got a super fun topic today. But first, in news in Rebecca's life, we're going to make Sam go first.
In other news, I met a lady the other day named Sobia, and I really liked her name, and I've been trying to name a character called the seamstress who sews dead children's bodies together and then plants them into the ground to recreate a new world in her backyard. And I've been trying to figure out what her name was, and I was like, is it Heather? Is it Tina? And with a slight modification, Subia the seamstress evokes a lot more than Tina the seamstress.
I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah, so I'm happy about that. What's going on in your life, cutie? Blanking?
Nothing.
Are you blanking?
Nothing ever happened.
Nothing is going on.
I've sat in this room for the last 20 years of my life and nothing has ever happened.
No, you haven't. That's a bunch of bullshit.
I know it is.
You want to just jump into our
I
topic?
can't remember anything that's ever happened to me.
All right,
I'm sorry.
Today our topic is
a universal basic income, which is awesome. It's one of my favorite things in the whole world to talk about. I do it all the time. I'm sorry.
Framing, because you might live in a time where this seems normal. This is super radical for our time. When you first told me about it almost 2 years ago, I was like, that's impossible and a lie. But what is impossible and a lie?
A universal basic income is a government stipend given to each member of a society, regardless of age, ability, sex, whatever. Each member of the society gets a government stipend that is in a full universal basic income equal to or above the poverty line. So in that way, we essentially eradicate poverty. People think like, oh, there's not really a ton of poverty in the U.S., and that's bullshit, because there's a ton of poverty in the U.S. It's just not absolute poverty like we see in developing nations.
Can I pause you? What's the difference between absolute and U.S. normal poverty?
Absolute poverty is being unable to meet your basic physical needs, not having access to clean water, food, shelter, basically.
America poverty is...
Yeah, partial poverty is, I think, defined as not having access to basic goods and services that allow you to function both individually and socially in your community.
So you're alive, but you're not really living very well.
Exactly. So things like...
Transport would be a really obvious one. Like you can't, you can eat and you can sleep in a box, but you can't get to any sort of work or go talk to people.
Yeah. And so a universal basic income is really a solution to any sort of poverty, be it partial or absolute. But for right now, I think we'll focus on the United States because that's where we are and where we're from. And I think a really, really good place to start implementing a universal basic income. So we'll talk about it mostly in the context of partial poverty. But anyways, with a universal basic income, you just eliminate it. It's gone, which is insane.
But won't people stop working, you're saying right now? In a sarcastic voice 30 years from now?
So studies, we don't have as much data as we would like on a universal basic income, but the studies that we have done show that the only demographics that stop working in any considerable amounts are teenagers who shouldn't be working.
They should be in school.
The elderly and new parents.
So people that shouldn't be at the job anyways. They're old, young, or they have a squalling, awful thing in their arms and they shouldn't be in the place.
Anyways.
But also, interestingly, every other demographic winds up working more because they have the safety to basically fail. They're like, oh, I really don't like this job. Fuck this job. I'll go find one I like. And then they wind up working that more, which increases more revenue for the society.
It definitely improves worker negotiations. It requires businesses to essentially just like step up their game. Because right now you're in this situation for a lot of lower level positions and a lot of higher level positions as well, that a lot of people simply cannot in any way afford to lose their job. I know I hear the argument all the time, well, you can just go get another job, and that's simply not the case. Most people do not have the savings build up to be able to afford losing their job and going on a job hunt, especially considering the unemployment rates, which means finding a job can take a while.
Yep. Especially in your field.
especially in your field and especially if you systemically haven't had access to higher education. Removing that through universal basic income is a good thing. It allows people to be able to negotiate for better working conditions, higher salaries.
But won't we become entitled and fat and a weak society?
Nope.
Sure.
Absolutely. So everything that we know currently about human psychology suggests that humans are labor inclined over leisure inclined, which is a false dichotomy in and of itself. Most people think of labor and leisure as mutually inverse codomains, or mutually exclusive inverse codomains, which is
That means they're
bullshit.
separate. You love that phrase. You love those phrases.
It's fun to say and it's very accurate and precise. Say it. Mutually exclusive inverse codomains.
codomains, but you could just say separate.
But that's not
Efficiency.
quite as specific. Anyways, they're
Yeah.
separate. They're separate.
3 syllables. Separate.
Separate.
Mutually inverse codomains versus 8. It's 5.
Sometimes you have to sacrifice brevity for specificity. Anyways, so most people think of labor and leisure as the separate thing. You go to work, you work. You come home, you don't work, which is really not beneficial socially. And it's not how humans like to do things. We don't like to have it separated. We like to be able to work on the things that we enjoy and enjoy the things we work on. That seems pretty self-evident. But because we allow currently the market to dictate what is profitable as far as work goes, we have a very, very narrow definition of what counts as work and what doesn't, based solely on what companies can make money off of, which is ridiculous.
I had such a good time working at McDonald's for 3 years, and I made a great ton of money, and I had a good time doing it.
Did you?
No, that's a fucking lie. But
That leads us to
automation, right?
Yeah, another point. The jobs are dying,
Yep.
essentially.
The
People-
jobs, the no fun jobs, and the
Yeah.
fun jobs.
Yeah, many of those too. So the machines are here, and they are continuing to appear, and a ton of our unskilled, I hate that word, unskilled labor jobs are rapidly disappearing. We see that even now. That's one of the reasons that the election happened the way that it did, was because
There's a whole bunch of people without jobs that are pissed
Mm-hmm.
off about it, and they elected the orange angry man.
Yep, because moving from like an industrial framework where there's a lot of manufacturing jobs to a post-industrial framework where a lot of those jobs are automated, the service sector can't absorb the excess of
There's
what we
too many
lost.
factory workers to be table waiters.
Yeah.
Like,
We don't need as many people in the service industry as we needed to manufacture. He's giving me the time signal.
it's time.
Okay, give me just
All
another
right.
second. I have
Okay.
like 2 more thoughts
Okay.
I gotta get out.
Speedy, we're at the 8-minute mark. Speed!
Okay. So there won't be enough jobs to go around. So we need to broaden our definition of what a job is. So under universal basic income, even if someone isn't making a ton of money off of what they do, they now have the opportunity to go make the community garden that they want to make, and they don't have to worry about whether or not they're going to starve because of it. So it opens up a lot of really like great options in socially beneficial non-play, which is a fancy word for fun work.
Yeah.
Or things that are helpful that aren't considered work. So anyways, universal basic income is a wonderful idea. I have half a mind to put a link in the description to a bunch of articles about it. It's wonderful and awesome, totally economically viable. Everyone should go read about it and call your congressman.
Anyways, it's time for the end.
Okay,
So,
gratitudes.
gratitudes.
I'm really, really grateful for the concept of a universal basic income and for the internet, because I learned all of this on the internet.
I am grateful for mutually exclusive inverse codomains because it's silly and you're silly and I like your big words. So I'm grateful for you.
Well, I'm grateful for you too. So our question is, what would you do if you didn't have to worry about making ends meet at your
Like
job?
physical survival money. You won't
Yeah.
be rich under universal basic, but you won't like not have a house.
Yeah.
You or rather a
All
box
of your
to live
basic
in.
needs will be taken care of. So
Yeah.
what would you do? Leave your answers
What would you do?
in the comments below. I'm really excited to hear. Personally, I would continue to do what I'm doing right now, which is art freelancing and personal training, but we would have so much more money to put into savings.
Oh my god, so much more.
And we would be able to, I mean, we would already have technically financial independence, but we would be able to retire really, really quickly at like a really comfortable living level, which.
Anywho.
Anyways, what would you do if you didn't have to work? Or if you had a universal
my goodness.
basic?
I'd keep writing as much as I do. I'd probably drop my part-time Korea House gig where I host and seat people. Not that I hate it that much, but it's basically unnecessary if the roughly $400 I make every month there are just given to me. That would be sweet, and then we'd make the fuck out of these things.
Oh, absolutely. These things would be...
As we said before the technical difficulties, if you don't like these videos, kids, blame the government because they aren't letting us live.
Goddamn government.
Yeah, it's all a conspiracy. Alright, time to wrap these things up.
Yeah, it's getting late, so...
Go the fuck to sleep, children.